The following program paid for by Lifespan Wealth Management. Providing financial advice since 1993. It's time for Your Money with Sherry Goss, Randy Goss, and Jonathan Eisner. And now from the Macon studios of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's Your Money.
Good morning, Middle Georgia, and thanks for tuning in to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. So if you're looking for an investment advisor, call our office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation.
Lifespan Wealth Management has offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience and has been serving Middle Georgia for over 30 years. You can learn more about our services by visiting our website at retirerelax.com. And while you're on our site, go to the special reports section where you'll find several reports that are available to you for free. You can also sign up to receive our digital feeds, which are short videos providing great information relevant to retirement, investing, and matters that affect your money.
We also offer seminars to the community at no cost. So if you're in need of a guest speaker for your church or civic organization, give us a call, and together we can decide what topics you would like us to present to your group. Again, our contact number is 478-922-8100.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you to all of our listeners, as always, for listening in. All right. Latest news. Open enrollment is in full swing. More Americans than ever will be able to fund tax-advantaged accounts aimed at healthcare costs for next year. Amen. Embedded in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill passed in July are three provisions that expand access to health savings accounts, or HSAs, which are accounts available to those enrolled in a high-deductible health insurance plan. I have one of these, so this article hit home for me.
Do you really?
I do.
Wow, that's great.
Like a flexible spending account, or an FSA, an HSA is funded with pre-tax dollars and can be used to cover medical costs throughout the year. Unlike an FSA, the money that you don't use can be carried over to future years. FSA, it's you use it or you lose it within the year. And the funds sit in your account, and you can own and take with you. You can take HSAs with you even if you switch jobs. Another feature that sets HSAs apart, you can invest the money into stocks, bonds, or ETFs. If you invest the money rather than spending it on a pressing health matter, that's where some serious advantages kick in. You now have an account that can grow with the market, and when needed for medical expenses at some point down the line, it can be taken out completely tax-free. So it's the only kind of account that is what we would call triple tax benefits. You get a deduction for the contributions. That's on the front end. You get tax deferral, and then you get tax-free on the back end.
That's
and you're not
fantastic.
required to pay to spend it.
Correct.
That's the other huge thing. Going into retirement, you'll still have this account.
Yep.
That's
That's
fantastic. All right. U.S. job growth defied expectations in September, according to the Labor Department report issued nearly 7 weeks late due to the government shutdown. Payrolls rose by a seasonally adjusted 119,000 on the month. That's the strongest gain since April, according to the Labor Department. That was well above the gain of 50,000 jobs economists expected to see. The unemployment rate, which is based on a separate survey, rose slightly to 4.4% as nearly 500,000 people joined the labor force. Economists expect the unemployment rate to hold at 4.3%. We hope so.
The National Retail Federation recently released its annual holiday spending forecast. If consumers meet that expectation, total holiday sales for 2025 will reach over just $1 trillion, eclipsing the $1 trillion mark for the first time. Despite significant trade policy uncertainty, brief bouts of extreme volatility, and persistent inflation leading to cautious, if not weak, consumer sentiment, actual consumer spending remained strong and supported by low unemployment, wage growth outpacing inflation, and positive wealth effects from healthy stock market returns. So a couple of times in a row, I've gone to a discount store that I really like to look for some tops, some dressy tops, which is where I can buy stuff at major discounts. And the place is so packed. The line of people checking out is 25 people long every time I go in there. I think people are spending a lot this year, and I think they're spending smarter. I think they're going and finding things that are a deal because I have never seen that many people in a line at that store this many times in my life. I have to just leave. I don't have time to stand in a line for 45 minutes.
I think we're going to see that all the way through the Christmas holidays, too.
So the spending is going to be big, and people are going to get even more than the value of what the thing is because They paid 20 for it. It's worth 50. I mean, so you could multiply these numbers if people really use their money right and really shop smart.
I agree.
The amount of gifts could be just massive.
Yep.
Anyways,
All right. In other news, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman visited with President Trump at the White House this week. This was the first White House visit in 7 years, and the goal was to help rebuild the U.S.-Saudi relationship and strengthen a partnership that remains central to American security and energy interest. The United States secured a $600 billion in investments in the president's visit to Saudi Arabia earlier this year, and the Saudis have pledged to invest more in America. And the Saudi got access to our F-35 fighter aircraft as well. Senior administration officials said that the expected agreements will include a multi-billion-dollar investment in America's AI infrastructure, enhanced cooperation on civil nuclear energy, and defense sales. Sound like a good visit.
Mark your calendar. Downtown Macon, November 28th at 6 p.m. Next Friday starts the annual Christmas Light Extravaganza with Macon Pops as they light up downtown Macon for the season's kickoff concert. Watch 5 blocks of lights dance and sync to Macon Pops Festival soundtrack, then enjoy the magic of all season long as the shows play nightly.
yeah, it is phenomenal. We've been watching it out our windows downtown, and they were starting to play and practice with the music last night, and it's really fantastic. And you really need to do more than just drive through it. We watch the cars, hundreds of cars a night, drive through and just look at the lights. You need to park, get out, and walk around because it's really fun and relaxing.
Yep. And if you're going to have dinner downtown, you need to make reservations during this entire time. It's really essential. And the lights and music are already playing, and it's really quite nice. Personally, I'd like to see them keep the white lights up year-round.
Me too.
Yeah, it's really
They're
nice.
pretty.
All right. Home sales in October rose to the highest level since February. Falling mortgage rates spurred more activity as sales moved higher for the second consecutive month. Home sales rose to an 8-month high in October, signaling how even a small decline in mortgage rates will attract some buyers back to the market. Sales of existing homes rose 1.2% from the prior month to a seasonally adjusted rate of 4.1 million, the highest level since February. That beat the rise of 1% that economists had forecasted. The October sales figure reflects home shopping activity in August and September, when mortgage rates dropped to an 11-month low and made purchases more affordable for many buyers. But according to Freddie Mac, rates ticked a bit higher in recent weeks, but have remained below 6.3%.
Prices are falling in some southern and western markets where inventories have risen. Buyers in many markets are able to negotiate price cuts and other concessions. So it appears the housing market is approaching a more balanced footing, and potential buyers have a level of comfort that they have not had in quite a while.
I hope it trends that way a lot. So, still, there are more than 500,000 more sellers than buyers in the housing market in October, the biggest gap on record in seasonally adjusted data going back to 2013. But on a year-over-year basis, October home sales rose 1.7%. So keep up that good work. This is a big deal. After a weekend scandal at the Fed, Congress will look at its own stock trading in the days ahead. News broke last Saturday that former Federal Reserve Governor Adriana Kugler violated the central bank's ethic rules around stock trading, pushing the issue of Washington's leaders playing the market back on the political agenda. The House Administration Committee has a meeting scheduled to formally debate the overlapping issue of banning lawmakers' stock trading for the first time in years. The hearing, titled Taking Stock of the Stock Act, is to consider strengthening current limits on lawmaker trading, which allows for trades as long as they comply with insider trading laws and are disclosed within 30 days.
Yep, those lawmaker restrictions have been criticized as insufficient, especially as a series of scandals from senators' tradings during the COVID-19 pandemic to increased trading activity seen this year around tariff announcements. All of this has created the appearance of impropriety or worse. The latest financial disclosures of Kugler, who abruptly resigned from the Fed board in August, showed previously undisclosed stock trading in 2024, including during the Fed's so-called blackout periods, which is in violation of the agency's ethics rules. Yet another example likely to further harden public opinion around the issue.
The House committee is expected to focus solely on banning lawmakers from trading stocks, not a wider array of officials across Washington. Attempts to ban the activity have been mounting for years, but they have stalled out.
Insider trading by members of Congress is already illegal. A spokesperson for Stale didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on whether he would favor ending the practice entirely via a ban, as he appears to have stopped short of making that call in recent years. Meanwhile, an array of other lawmakers want the practice banned altogether. One measure being pushed by a bipartisan group is called the Restore Trust in Congress Act, which would implement a ban on members of Congress, their spouses, their dependent children, their trustees, from owning, buying, or selling individual stocks, securities, commodities, or futures. The bill is being led by a Republican, Representative Chip Roy of Texas, and a Democrat, Representative Seth Magaziner of Rhode Island, and was unveiled in September with a cross-section of supporters. Other lawmakers have expressed wariness that a ban is the right approach, but polls indicate overwhelming public support. One survey this summer from the University of Maryland's School of Public Policy found that 86% of Americans back a full ban.
It's about time. But what about the people who got away with this for years? I mean, are they going to go back and look at those guys? They probably don't have time to do it.
I think that's water under the bridge.
Yeah, what a waste.
Yeah, this does make your blood pressure go way up when you hear politicians who beat Warren Buffett's returns by thousands of percentage points over their career. But I have to sit back and really think about this situation. And here's my case. I want you to consider all the people who make their living in the D.C. area. And there are politicians, there are their staff members, the lobbyists, their consultants, the research firms, the lawyers and their staff. And that just gets the list started. And let's not even throw in the media here, too. There are literally tens of thousands of people working in the D.C. area who alone may be privy to the whispers of a deal or an idea that could affect a number of companies that could make a product or provide a service that might be part of a new government program. The information that transacts at that level is not actionable as, say, an insider information from two companies who decide to merge and the members of the board trade ahead of that announcement, or a CFO of a company who knows that a patent has been approved but buys 10,000 shares ahead of that announcement. Or say a CEO of a major company that sells off his stock before he decides to leave the company, knowing that the stock will fall. These types of insider tips are more direct and concrete. On the legislative side, the link, at least during the initial phases of this discussion, is more tenuous and less concrete. Until discussions get to a point where a specific company or at least the company is selected, a lot of things could happen to include the entire project being scrapped. There are usually blackout periods when this information is learned, and from that point forward, information cannot be acted upon or should not be acted upon. And if they're caught trading on that information, they should be subject to the same penalties that everyone else in the rest of America is subject to. And that includes the fines, the penalties, imprisonment, everything.
I agree.
What do you think?
Yeah, or just taking the beating that the rest of us take, because
go sit in jail with Martha Stewart.
Well, that or just actually leave your stocks alone and let them take either the gain or the loss.
That's right.
So, I mean, I remember the COVID thing, and it was like Friday afternoon, the world was fine, and it's like, oh, there's this mysterious disease out there. And then Monday morning, the world went to absolute hell in a handbasket.
That's right.
But we learned after the fact that a lot of politicians had exited the week before.
That's right.
Because they knew that announcement was coming.
Right.
So very frustrating for all the rest of us that took an absolute beating.
But in the rest of us out here, when this happens, a civil enforcement action could be brought against an insider by the SEC, and the monetary penalty is up to 3 times the amount of profit gain or loss avoided. The same thing should happen to them.
Right. I agree.
A cease and desist order is part of it, barring the insider from serving as an officer or director of any public company. All of these things they are immune to. They need to be subject to the same laws.
And they know this.
Yeah, they do. But the ethics rule up there, they get charged $25 for an ethics violation. That's just insane.
Won't name any names, but there is a pretty well-known, notorious one. Last name rhymes with Pelosi.
Yes.
So I'll leave that one up to y'all.
Yes.
To figure that one out.
Oh, God.
I'm struggling with it.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. You'll get it eventually.
Who is that?
All righty. So, tariff update. The White House recently announced several trade deals with South and Central American nations that could lead to reduced tariffs on certain goods. The countries involved in the agreements are Ecuador, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Argentina, and the deals should lower food prices. In addition, Argentina has agreed to give preferential market access to U.S. goods such as medication, chemicals, technology, and more. Additionally, Guatemala has committed to refrain from imposing digital services taxes or other measures that discriminate against U.S. digital services or U.S. products distributed digitally. Next, our Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, announced that the Department of Energy will largely focus on financing nuclear power plants. Electricity demand from artificial intelligence and data centers will bring in billions of dollars of capital from very creditworthy providers. That financing will be matched 3-to-1 or maybe even 4-to-1 with low-cost debt dollars from the Loan Programs Office. The U.S. also invested in AI agents for cyber warfare, spending millions this year on a secretive startup that's using AI for offensive cyber attacks. And Google is committing $40 billion toward the construction of 3 data centers in Texas. There's a lot more than that going on. I recommend reading the Wall Street Journal, as they have updates daily, and you want to stick to the fact section of the paper, not the opinion.
All right, let's talk about how to cut your tax bill with tax loss harvesting. This discussion is about individual investment accounts, not IRAs or Roths. Not every investment will be a winner. Fortunately, even losing investments come with a silver lining. You may be able to use those losses to lower your tax liability and reposition your portfolio for the future. This strategy is known as tax loss harvesting, and it is one technique investors can use to make their investments more tax efficient. Tax loss harvesting generally works like this. You sell an investment that is underperforming and losing money. Then use that money to reduce your taxable gains and potentially offset up to $3,000 of your ordinary income. Finally, you reinvest the money from the sale in a different security that meets your investment needs and asset allocation strategy.
The principle behind tax loss harvesting is fairly straightforward, but it does involve some potential pitfalls you should try to avoid. Imagine you're reviewing your portfolio and see that your industrial stocks have dropped in value while your tech holdings have risen sharply. As a result, the industrial sector now accounts for less of your stock allocation than you'd prefer, while the tech sector is overweight. To get your portfolio closer to your target allocation, a portfolio maintenance practice such as rebalancing, you could use that to sell your industrial sector losers for a loss, as well as some of your tech sectors for a gain. This allows you to do 2 things.
Yep, you can use the proceeds of these sales to buy other industrial stocks whose prospects you prefer, bringing your portfolio back to the original target allocation. Or you can use the value of your loss from the industrial shares to offset the taxable gains from the sale of your tech shares, thereby reducing the tax liability. Furthermore, if your losses are larger than the gains, you can use the remaining losses to offset up to $3,000, as Randy just mentioned, of ordinary taxable income, or for married couples filing separately, $1,500 each. Any amount over $3,000 can be carried forward to future tax years to offset income down the line. For example, let's say you recognize a gain of $20,000 on a stock that you bought less than a year ago. We'll call that investment A. Because you held the stock for less than a year, the gain is treated as a short-term capital gain and will be taxed at the higher ordinary income rates rather than the lower long-term capital gains rates, which apply to investments that are held for longer than a year. At the same time, you also sell shares of another stock for a short-term capital loss of $25,000. So gain of $20,000, loss of $25,000, we'll call the $25,000 loss investment B. Your $25,000 loss would offset the full $20,000 gain from A, meaning that you'd owe no taxes on that gain, and you could actually use the remaining $5,000 loss to offset up to $3,000 of your ordinary income that year. The $2,000 that's left on that loss can be carried forward into the following year for tax purposes. Assuming you're subject to a 35% marginal rate, the overall tax benefit of harvesting those losses could be as much as $7,000, which is 35% of the $20,000 gain.
Yeah, and let me state too that $2,000 that you had left over, you can carry that into perpetuity. So,
well, yeah, I mean
you can use it in any year in the future.
Yeah. But I mean, the bigger thing for perpetuity is let's say you have a $15,000 loss.
Yeah, you can use $3,000 per year.
Per year, so that carries you over the next 5 years of up to $3,000 against your ordinary income.
Yep.
Using an investment loss to lower your capital gains tax, assume a 35% combined federal state marginal income tax bracket. The example is hypothetical and provides for an illustrative purposes only. It is not intended to represent a specific investment product, and the example does not reflect the effects of fees. And as always, this is a disclosure with this is a disclosure with investments. Here is ours. Neither the tax loss harvesting strategy nor any discussion here is intended as tax advice. It does not represent that any particular tax consequences will be obtained. Tax loss harvesting involves certain risks, including unintended tax implications. Investors should consult with their tax advisors and refer to the Internal Revenue Service (IRS) website at www.irs.gov about the consequences of tax loss harvesting.
Issues to consider before utilizing tax loss harvesting. As with any tax-related topic, there are rules and limitations. Tax loss harvesting isn't useful in retirement accounts such as 401k or an IRA because you can't deduct the losses generated in a tax-deferred account. Long-term losses are first applied to long-term gains, while short-term losses are applied to short-term gains. If you have excess losses in one category, you can apply them to gains of either type. When conducting these types of transactions, you should also be aware of the wash sale rule, which states that if you sell a security at a loss and buy the same or a substantially identical security within 30 days before or after the sale, the loss is typically disallowed for current income tax purposes.
Yep, a tax break for ordinary income. If you don't have capital gains to offset, tax loss harvesting could still help you reduce your income tax liability. This is what we were talking about a minute ago with the $3,000 against ordinary income. Let's say Sophia, a single income tax filer, holds XYZ stock. She originally bought it for $10,000, but now it's worth only $7,000. She could sell those holdings and take a $3,000 loss against her income. Then she could use the proceeds to buy shares of ZYY stock, which is a similar stock but not substantially identical, after determining that it's as good or better than XYZ. Sophia could use the $3,000 capital loss from XYZ to reduce her taxable income for the current year. If her combined marginal rate is 30%, she could receive a current income tax benefit of up to $900, which is the $3,000 times 30%. She could then turn around and invest her tax savings back in the market. If she assumes an average annual return of 6%, reinvesting $900 each year could potentially amount to approximately $35,000 after 20 years. Harvesting losses regularly and proactively when you see, this is a good example. I mean, we obviously don't want losses every single year in a portfolio for this to be the case, but the point is that you can make the most of a bad situation.
Good point.
By taking the loss, counting it as a loss against your income, and then over years and years, that can compound and make a difference if you're careful with it.
Very good. Next up, 3 mistakes people make when transferring their 401ks to IRAs. When people leave a job, whether to retire or to move to another job, they typically roll over their 401k into an individual retirement account, and many of them make costly mistakes when they do so. Rolling over a workplace savings plan like a 401k or a 403b is often a good choice, but even a straightforward transfer can be a tax headache if you don't do it right. What's more, some savers miss out on provisions to further limit taxes or take advantage of their savings before reaching the age of 59.5 for penalty-free withdrawals. However, proper planning can help you avoid costly errors and big tax hits. Here are 3 common mistakes investors make when transferring 401ks to traditional IRAs and how to steer clear of them.
Yep, the first one is missing a key deadline. While some employers allow you to keep your 401k after you've left the company, not all of them do, especially if the balance is under $7,000. That leaves you with 2 options for moving your funds to an IRA, a direct transfer or a 60-day rollover. A direct transfer is very simple. You tell your 401k plan's administrator, like Fidelity or Vanguard or whoever it may be, where to send the funds, and they will appear in the new IRA in a seamless transaction. But if you don't do the direct the 401k plan administrator, if you don't tell them where to send the funds, whether that's intentional or not, you'll get a check in the mail. If that happens, you have 60 days, and this is the 60-day rollover. If that happens, you have 60 calendar days to deposit that money into a traditional IRA, or the IRS will treat the withdrawal as a taxable income. And if you're under age 59.5, you'll also owe 10% of an early withdrawal penalty. So it can be very punishing if you receive the check and you just sit on it for 61 days. And not only will you get a check, but you'll also get one with taxes deducted. For example, on a $10,000 balance of a 401k, your check may only be $8,000, as the 401k custodian will automatically deduct 20% for federal taxes, to be withheld for federal taxes as is required by law. Then if you want to move the original $10,000 to the IRA, you'll need to come up with an additional $2,000 within 60 days. If you have proof that you contributed that $2,000 to your IRA within the 60 days, you can enter that on your tax return to get a tax credit. but otherwise you need to make the full deposit to avoid taxes and potential penalties.
Yep. And the second mistake is missing out on the rule of 55. If you're between ages 55 and 59 and leave your job, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, you may have the opportunity to tap the workplace retirement fund as a bridge to traditional retirement age, or use the savings to plug an income gap while you're in between work. Use the money. Once the money is rolled over from a workplace plan to an IRA, however, it is too late. With the rule of 55, the IRS allows you to make withdrawals from your 401k or your 403b without paying the usual 10% early withdrawal penalty. While you would still pay the ordinary income tax on your withdrawal, avoiding a 10% withdrawal penalty can be a significant savings for people who take out large sums. If you're thinking about taking out a large sum, it could easily push you up several tax brackets, and that may not be in your best interest. So take advantage of the rule of 55. If your employer's plan allows you to use these withdrawals, that is, and understand that not all employer plans allow for these. You'll also need you'll need to turn at least 55 in the calendar year you leave your job, or be between the ages 56 and 59 to access these funds. Also, the withdrawals must come from the workplace plan from the employer you left between ages 55 and 59.
Third, missing out on tax savings. If you're leaving a job where you hold a significant amount of company stock in your 401k plan, think twice about moving both the stock and the 401k money at the same time. You may want to consider whether a net unrealized appreciation election, which allows you to defer taxes on any increase in the stock's value, is appropriate. To take this election, you roll over your 401k to an IRA and move the actual shares into a taxable brokerage account. In the year you take the election, you may pay ordinary income tax on the price you originally paid for the company stock once you move it from your 401k into a taxable brokerage account. Ordinary income can be as high as 37%. If you're under the age of 55, a 10% penalty also applies. Until you sell the stock, however, you won't be taxed on the net unrealized appreciation. No matter how long you own the stock, when you do decide to sell, you would pay long-term capital gains rate on the appreciation, which currently goes up to 20%. Conversely, if you can transfer your company stock with the 401k assets into an IRA, all future withdrawals will be taxed at ordinary income rates.
You know, in prepping for this show, I read a case study that illustrates what you just talked about, Corey. A gentleman who elected to move the company stock to his new 401k. The cost basis of the company's stock was valued at $300,000. And over the years, it had appreciated to $3 million. That's a nice little bump. The client paid $111,000 in income taxes on the $300,000. But he will pay long-term capital gains on the $2.7 million whenever he sells the stock. The moral of the story is to make sure you understand the consequences of each of your options that you're presented with. It could save you or cost you lots of your money. So, anyway.
Halftime?
Halftime.
You've been listening to Your Money, brought to you by Lifespan Wealth Management, proudly serving Middle Georgia for over 30 years. Our mission? Helping folks just like you plan for a secure and stress-free retirement. Need a trusted financial advisor? Call us today at 478-922-8100 and schedule your complimentary consultation at our Macon or Warner Robins office. Want to learn more? Visit us anytime at retirerelax.com. Because when you plan smart, you can retire and relax. And here's something extra. We offer free educational seminars for the community. If your group needs a guest speaker, give us a call and let's make it happen. That's 478-922-8100. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, Jonathan, back to you.
All right. So things that we are grateful for this year, and we as in us at this table talking, it's easy, and I'm speaking very much from experience on this, it's easy to get so caught up in the day-to-day challenges that life brings that we don't stop to take a minute and recognize the good things in our lives. With this being our last episode before Thanksgiving, we wanted to take a few minutes to bring attention to the good in our lives, the things that we're grateful for this holiday season, and I will get us started off. I mentioned last week on the show, when I was talking about Veterans Day, this idea that the older I get, the more I appreciate, or at least make a conscientious effort to appreciate, the finer things in life. Maybe it's because as we get older and have more experiences, we see a lot of things in other people's lives that make us appreciate our own situation. This year, I'm thankful to have a healthy family. This is something I've always taken for granted. But man, I've seen some things in other families, whether it's physical disabilities or addiction or whatever the case may be, that makes me beyond grateful that I have a relatively normal, healthy, functioning family. Another thing I'm trying to appreciate and be grateful for is that as my oldest son approaches college age, I appreciate the time we have left in our house as a family of 6, because I know that when he leaves for school, our life as we have come to know it is never going to be the same again. And that's good in a lot of ways, but it's also, something to try to appreciate while he's here. I'm also very thankful to have a place to work that I enjoy getting up and coming to every day. Not once in the 2+ years that I've been with you guys have I ever woken up and thought, man,
Very nice.
I got to go to work today. In fact, Sherry, I think I told you once I was on vacation for a week, and I was like, man, I can't wait to get back in there and there was a point on the vacation where I was like, I got things going on. I got to get back in there. And so anyway, that's something that I take for granted too. And so I just wanted to take a minute and throw some appreciation out for it.
Well, we're so glad you joined.
Yep, absolutely.
Me too.
All right. Well, I'm up next. I will always start with Sherry and the kids and grandkids. I'm really thankful for all of y'all, and you're wonderful, Sherry. And I'm also thankful for this wonderful business we have, and most of all the great staff that we shows up that we have that shows up every day and does what needs to be done without having to bark orders or anything else. It's just a wonderful thing. It makes running a business so much easier, and I'm thankful to live in this great country. Despite what some say, this is still the greatest country on earth and any other place that we know of. So God bless America. And
Yes, sir.
God bless the USA.
I'm thankful for being part of a close and loving family and being part of a great group here at Lifespan. I know many families can have their ups and downs, and usually there are parts of the family you may stay away from, but that's not the case with my immediate family. Everyone gets along, and it makes for a holiday season that you look forward to instead of dreading, because I know some people, they don't like the holidays just because they don't get along with their family and they feel like they're kind of obligated to. And I'm thankful for each of them being in good health.
That's a great example. I'm just going to interrupt before Sherry does her part. That's a great example of something where you see families that don't get together for something like the holidays. And that's something that I think can be taken for granted. And my family, like yours,
We always
loves
did.
to get together.
We
and
always
loves,
did.
Yeah. And so when you see families that don't do that because they don't have good relationships or
Actively
whatever the
avoid it.
case, man, it makes you
Yeah.
appreciate your own situation with close family.
Amen.
I agree. I'm mostly thankful for Andy, and it's a miracle how we met. And we knew within a very short time frame that we were right for each other. Not many people have that happen. I'm also very thankful about how I was raised. I grew up on a farm, and we lived off the land, and everyone had to contribute to these efforts. That lifestyle gave me a good work ethic from a very early age, and Randy was raised very similarly. There are so many things I'm thankful for: our family, our business, our wonderful clients, and I could go on and on. I just thank God every day for what He has helped us create in every direction. So, anybody want to add anything else? Nope.
You
Good.
know, I've been working with the VA on some issues lately, and I've gotten to see some other veterans that
Oh wow.
are, when you think about, man, I hurt here, I hurt there, then you sit through some of these meetings and you see some of these other veterans and how broken they are.
Yeah, I bet.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So I give thanks to the fact that I'm not as broken as some of them, and I pray for them every day.
Well, I very much subscribe to the notion that, as cliche as it sounds, things could always be worse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because they sure could.
Absolutely. So, Sherry's story: a client with multiple old 401k accounts, all in cash. The question is, I'm 51, married, and pay $200 a month for a $1.5 million term life insurance policy. At what stage should I reduce or stop paying for my term life insurance? He also has a $500,000 term life insurance from his employer. He's also 5 years from financial independence. So, what do you think?
So this breeder who submitted this, the policy is an excellent value if you still have meaningful years remaining in the guaranteed level premium term. For example, if you have 5 years left on a 10 or 20-year term, paying $200 a month for $1.5 million in coverage is a pretty cost-effective protection, especially while your spouse is still working and remains financially dependent. The good news, life insurance proceeds are generally not considered taxable income. You're basically paying the cost of a typical household utility bill for a tax-free $1.5 million death benefit, which is about 0.16% of the coverage amount annually. Inexpensive for someone in their early 50s with meaningful financial obligations. Based on those numbers and assuming your premiums remain constant for the rest of the term, it definitely makes sense to continue with that policy.
Yeah. Ultimately, the decision to continue depends on how many years remain in your level premium term policy, your spouse's financial independence, and whether your death would leave your spouse in dire financial straits, and your overall financial picture. And that picture includes your assets, liabilities, retirement readiness, and whether your employer's group policy is portable or subject to change. It also depends on whether your policy can be converted to a permanent policy or extended post-term, and if so, at what cost.
This is a common scenario and a reminder that term coverage is not designed to be kept indefinitely. At the moment, you're in good shape with a total of $2 million in coverage. The takeaway for you stop paying for term life insurance when you're financially independent. Your death would not put your wife under terrible financial pressure and or when the term expires or premiums rise significantly, whichever comes first.
So when I quit my job and got into the insurance and financial business, I bought a $1 million life policy on Randy term just in case he died before he got his Air Force pension. At that time, if something were to happen to him, I would be financially devastated, and we had 2 kids in high school. It gave me tremendous peace of mind, and thank God we never had to use it. And the 10 years allowed me time to become financially successful and to not have to worry about me covering the expenses. So it's something to think about. You kind of have to do this worst case scenario thing of if you're the breadwinner and your spouse is not working and you've got kids and you've got expenses and something happens to you, how would they handle that? And what do you need to do about it?
And term policies are not that expensive
Right.
either. So
Very good. So diabetes, mellitus, type 2, and Agent Orange. This was out just this week on military.com. Veterans who developed type 2 diabetes mellitus and were exposed to Agent Orange or other herbicides during military service do not have to prove a connection between their diabetes and service to be eligible to receive VA health care and disability compensation. Signs of untreated diabetes type 2 are blurry vision, excessive thirst, fatigue, hunger, frequent urination, and weight loss. Veterans who served in Vietnam, the Korean Demilitarization Zone, or any other area where Agent Orange was sprayed may be eligible for a free Agent Orange Registry health exam. Surviving spouses, dependent children, and dependent parents of veterans who were exposed to herbicides during military service and died as a result of type 2 diabetes may be eligible for survivors' benefits. So please visit the VA or the Vector Center in Warner Robins and start your application if you haven't already done so. And I have to tell you, we had a neighbor years ago that lived across the street from us, and he was not in Vietnam. He was in the place where the planes landed and reloaded, and he was in charge of the reloading, and the planes would fly in covered in Agent Orange, and he was exposed at a toxic level. So his disability kicked in very quickly and was extremely devastating. So please, if you think there is any way that you would qualify for any of this, please go see the VA.
We actually have, I don't know, this is just a blip and we'll mention it here. There's an article at the end of the show with a lot more detail about new 401k and IRA contributions for 2026. Probably that's going to end up getting pushed to a future week because it's a lot of information. But here's the high-level version. If your employer offers a 401k, you'll be able to save more money for retirement next year. 2026 401k contribution limit is now it will be in 2026, $24,500, which is a $1,000 increase from this year's limit. If you're 50 or older, you can stash an additional $8,000 into your 401k. And if you're between the ages of 60 and 63, you can make an even higher contribution of $11,250. All of this under the Secure Act 2.0 rules. The limits for IRAs or Roth IRAs is going to be increased from $7,000 to $7,500. So again, we'll have more information on this, deadlines, etc. That probably is going to be pushed into a future episode.
Very good. For the instantly wealthy, receiving a large sum of money all at once sounds like a dream come true, but for some, and I'm sure you've heard the stories, it can create a nightmare. According to CNBC, lottery winners are more likely to go bankrupt within 3 to 5 years than the average American. Studies found that instead of getting people out of financial trouble, Winning the lottery got people into more trouble since bankruptcy rates soared for lottery winners 3 to 5 years after winning. With numbers such as the ones above, it almost sounds more like a nightmare, doesn't it? Why is this? Because time and again we hear about the downfall of a short-lived financial empire for people who hit it big. The theory used to be that receiving a large chunk of cash ruined people and drove them to make bad decisions. But research shows otherwise. Dan McNay is a financial advisor and national expert on the habits of lottery winners. He says the problem is wealth. Once people have it, their bad patterns only get worse. So receiving a windfall doesn't necessarily change a person, it just amplifies their money habits.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? The next problem is that once other people find out that the money exists, the instantly wealthy will receive a lot of advice. They will be told over and over to pay off their house, to do this or do that. If they come to see us and they are considering paying off their home, the first question we ask is whether they plan to live there for a long time. It could be that this windfall opens other doors, such as the ability to move closer to family. If that is a possibility, we typically advise against paying off the house. See, everyone's case is unique. Paying off other debt, however, usually makes a lot of sense. This is where a person needs a trusted financial advisor they can talk to, one who is willing to help them make the right decisions. This person might be a certified financial planner, which you will find in this office if you give us a call. A professional attorney, a certified public accountant, all three work as a team is really the best way to go.
Yep. An additional problem these people will face are salespeople. They'll come from every direction, and it can be very overwhelming. The first response we would suggest is, my financial advisor and I have agreed that I will wait a year before making any decisions with this money. And this puts the instantly wealthy back in the driver's seat. And if the product is something that looks interesting, they can take the materials to one of their trusted advisors to review. The bottom line is that getting professional advice can help protect their financial windfall for the future. We've seen many people struggle in this situation. Here are a few case examples that should provide some guidance for you. The widow or widower. We see a lot of widows who've received a large payment from life insurance policies after their spouse dies. They may have inherited a retirement account, annuity, individual investment account, or property and want to know how they will all work. In many cases, the surviving spouse didn't handle the day-to-day finances, so they're a little uncomfortable having this much money and are not sure what they need to do with it. They've usually heard the advice to not make any big decisions in the first year, but that advice doesn't seem to help. In almost every case, the instantly wealthy ask us if it's okay to give some of this money to their kids. In almost every case, we advise against it.
I see this a lot. So we say this because we see so many people who are paying bills that belong to their adult children. These children work and are in their 40s and 50s, but have become used to asking their parents to solve their financial problems. The longer the parents bail them out and the more money that is given, the worse the problem seems to become.
Giving children money regardless of age creates an expectation that more is going to be given, which can lead to dependency. We don't want to sound cruel here. Everyone wants to help their kids from time to time, but we also want them to be able to work through their problems on their own. Money should only be given after a plan is made. A plan is made for the widow or widower's financial future, and it is clear that they can afford to give some of that money away. Part of this plan will include tracking spending for a month to determine if their cash flow will be adequate to cover their own bills. Also, a long-range plan needs to be created to ensure that they can handle unexpected expenses like long-term care, should that arise.
The recipient of a settlement, the recipient of a life insurance benefits is between the surviving spouse and the insurance company. Nobody else has to know that this money exists, so it is easy to keep private. A settlement, on the other hand, usually involves an injury, and that takes months to work through, so during this process, family members and friends may learn the details. Pressure from family members to help them is tough, but you have to remember you are the person who needs this money to take care of you for the rest of your life, especially if you are no longer able to work. Think of it this way. If you help out your family members and spend down your assets now, who will be there to help you when you have to pay your bills in the future?
That's right. All right, the next one is the recipient of a large sum pension. This one is interesting because the person knows years in advance that they will receive this money. A lump sum pension can be a wonderful thing if it is invested so that it continues to grow as you age, so that you can take the distributions. Many of our clients have these, and we manage the accounts for them and provide advice on how much they can take out. However, we do see people who have the notion that they are not going to live very long. Therefore, they can spend down this money. For some reason, the age 75 is a very popular number. They take the amount of their pension and divide it by the number of years they believe that they will live, and the resulting figure is how much money they think they can spend each year. The fact that your parents died at age 75 has no bearing, usually, on how long you will live. We do our best to help people look at the big picture, and in many cases, ask them to delay making any decision right away. That is usually a good first step. But if you would like to see a personalized estimate of how long you may live, visit the website livingto100.com. That's livingto100.com, and click on Take the Calculator. It's free.
And this was already mentioned earlier, but the recipient of lottery winnings. 2 words: stay anonymous. Did you guys ever watch the show Lost?
Yes.
You remember Hurley, or I don't remember his name in the show, the big guy. He was a lottery winner, and it ruined his life. That's all I can think about as we're reading these the lottery winning. But it's true. Meet with a CFP and work out a plan for what to do with this windfall before making any promises to anybody. All right, a few final tips for the instantly wealthy. Keep this information to yourself if you can. Beware of old habits like shopping or gambling that can very quickly get out of control. Slippery slope there. Put off making any big decisions for at least 6 months, preferably a year. Find a CFP professional on CFP website, which is cfp.net, and ask for advice. Do not let anybody sell you a product. Do not feel pressured to give this money away. As Randy mentioned, visit the website livingto100.com to estimate your own life expectancy and lay out a financial plan that provides for your secure future.
So, one other point. If you gift money to one child over another, you can equalize your estate by changing the percentage of your assets that will go to each kid. So, I just saw a client who helped his son buy a house, so he removed him as a beneficiary on his IRA to equalize the situation. My dad did this with his will, and it was a very good thing since he gifted money to 2 of my siblings, which was deducted from their share of inheritance when he passed. So you got to look at the big picture of this thing, but the bottom line is to take care of yourself first. Make sure that you're going to be okay.
100%.
Yep.
So we got a few minutes. I guess we will end up covering the 401k.
At least we'll get partly into it. All right, 2025 and 2026 contribution limits for 401ks. The IRS adjusts the limits for how much you can save in tax-advantaged retirement accounts each year for inflation. It typically does so in increments of $500. Here's a look at how these limits vary across age groups. There are 2 main types of 401ks. That's the traditional 401ks, where you contribute pre-tax money and pay taxes on withdrawals, and Roth 401ks, where you've already paid taxes on the contributions and you get tax-free withdrawals in retirement. The contribution limits are the same for both types of 401ks. These limits apply to several other types of retirement accounts, including 403b plans, which are offered by public schools and some 503 tax-exempt organizations. Most 457 plans, which are available to some state and local government employees, and the Thrift Savings Plan for federal government employees and uniformed service members.
Many companies match a portion of their employees' contributions to their 401ks and other retirement accounts. If your employer provides a match, their contribution won't count towards the amount that you're allowed to contribute. However, there are limits on the combined employer-employee contributions. In 2026, you and your employer's contributions to your 401k can't be more than $72,000, up from $70,000 in 2025. The $8,000 catch-up contribution that you're allowed to make after you're at least 50 years old doesn't count towards these limits, nor does the $11,250 catch-up contribution you can make in 2026 if you're between age 60 and 63.
Do 401ks have income limits? There are no 401k income limits. You can contribute to a 401k no matter how high your income. But the IRS conducts what's called non-discrimination tests each year to ensure that a retirement plan doesn't disproportionately benefit higher compensated employees. The IRS will consider you a highly compensated employee if you own more than 5% of the business at any time during the year or the previous year, regardless of how much you earned, or you earned more than $160,000 in the previous year for 2026 or $160,000 in the previous year for 2025, and if your employer chooses to make what's known as a top paid election. You rank in the top 20% of employees for compensation. If you're considered a highly compensated employee, you can still contribute to your 401k up to the limits, but if your company plan fails discrimination testing for a year, it may need to return some of your contributions as a corrective measure.
What is the deadline to contribute to a 401k? You have until the end of the calendar year to make 401k contributions, so the deadline for 2025 is going to be December 31st. Any contributions you make after that will count toward 2026. Can you contribute to a 401k and an IRA? Yes. You can contribute to both of the types of accounts, 401k and an IRA, as long as you're eligible for each account and stick to the contribution limits. However, if you or your spouse has a 401k and any other workplace retirement account, you may be ineligible to deduct contributions to a traditional IRA, or you may only be allowed to deduct a partial amount. Also, keep in mind that income limits do apply to Roth IRAs as well.
Very good. Also, here are some common 401k contribution facts. 401 contribution limits increased by $1,000 in 2026 to a total of $24,500. The 2025 401k contribution limit was $23,500. Catch-up contributions for people 50 and older were $7,500 in 2025 and increased to $8,000 for 2026. Starting in 2025, people 60 to 63 can make catch-up contributions that's 50% higher than the regular catch-up contribution limits. That means workers 60 to 63 can contribute up to $34,750 in 2025 and $36,500 in 2026. So what percentage of your paycheck should go into your 401k? A good goal to aim for is to save 15% of your pre-tax income in a tax-advantaged retirement account like a 401k or a 403b or an IRA. Employer contributions count towards that 15% target. However, if you're getting a late start or want to retire early, you may need to save more since your money has less time to grow. And remember, these are pre-tax dollars, so you may think 15% will really impact your take-home. By the time you take into account the employer's portion and the amount taken pre-tax, the blow to the take-home is softer than you might realize. There are several calculators on the web that you can use to calculate the effects of adding additional dollars to your employer investment program, so take advantage of those.
Is it smart to max out your 401k? Maxing out your 401k is a smart move when you have a relatively high salary, but it's not necessary or realistic for many people. Aim to contribute at least enough to get your employees full match, then use the extra money to pay off high interest debt like credit cards and build at least a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. After that, aim to invest more for retirement by funding an IRA, making an unmatched 401k contribution, or a combination of both.
I'll say this can get very sticky.
It can.
If you and your spouse are part of an employer plan and you want to do an IRA or a Roth IRA, you may unintentionally break some of the rules. So come see us because we are pretty familiar with these rules. And over the years, I've helped a lot of people navigate. Okay, well, you can do this much into your 401k. You guys earn X and Y for your income, so we need to do this route for your IRAs or your Roth IRAs because, again, you don't want to have to give back any of those contributions or have to pay any kind of penalties if you're unintentionally breaking the rules, the income limit rules or the contribution rules.
And there are so many rules out there. Having professionals like CFPs that delve into these things on a regular basis that can help you navigate these is really important to have in your back pocket. You know, Sherry, today we were looking at the new advertisement that you're going to be recording today, hopefully. And there are so many people out there that have, student loan debt and they haven't started saving because they don't feel like they can. What was the generation that they were talking about? Gen Zs or?
I think so.
But anyway, there's so many people that have not started saving because they just don't feel like they can. It's never too late to start. Even if it's a small amount, getting started is very important. You want to talk about that?
Just even an emergency fund. I mean, something's going to break.
That's always the first step.
If you have no savings, there you go. There goes your credit card debt.
That's right.
I mean, you've got to have something to take care of the flat tire or the whatever that happens to your car, or the sick cat, or I don't care what it is.
Because there's always going to be something.
There's always going to be something. So you always have to have an emergency fund. And once that's funded, depending on your lifestyle and your expenses and what you think could possibly happen, then you've got to start saving for your future, and the younger, the better.
Yeah.
I wish I had the projections in front of me, but you start early, you just really can do extremely well with not even contributing massive amounts of money.
It's the behavior more than anything
It is.
than the actual amount. I had a young client come in this week. I like this guy a lot, and he came in and almost like embarrassingly, he said, "I want to start doing $100 a month to my Roth IRA." And I was like, "Man, that's better than zero."
Absolutely.
And he knew he could. He knew he could work his lifestyle around not having $100 a month, but it was
Right.
the behavior of doing it every single month that he wanted to at least start, and he plans to up that as he's able to
Very good.
adjust to it.
So if you would like to start, please come see us. We have some great CFPs sitting right here at the table, and they would be happy to work with you.
Yes, we would.
So have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning and advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for a financial advisor, please contact our office at 478-922-8100 to set up a free consultation. You can learn more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com. If you have a question or topic you'd like for us to address in a future broadcast, email Randy at rfmoney.com. We look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.